So, the Lord of the Ascendant is sort of like the guy who steers the ship of life via the native actions and behavior. And it corresponds to the native's nature, kind of how they come off. It's very much the current understanding of the Ascendant in modern astrology, of how it corresponds to how somebody goes about doing their life, basically. It doesn't necessarily govern destiny. That's more the Lord of the chart, which we'll get to. The sign the planet is in gives clues as to how they will approach life and how well equipped they are, because signs in their rulership and exaltation are going to be well equipped for life. So a strong Lord of the Ascendant, and maybe it's in its own rulership, it's going to have all the resources it needs to do what it needs to do effectively, whatever that may be. And exaltation is like raised up, like the person may literally be raised up in society, or raised up, like their actions may get them famous, for instance. But if the Lord of the Ascendant is in its detriment or fall, it's not going to be very well equipped to take on life, and it's not going to have the suitable resources to do so, and it will sort of start out okay but get worse as life goes on. And of course the house indicates the area of life where the native will focus a lot of energy on to actually accomplish their goals. So angularity always plays a big role in determining the potency of any planet, but in this case the potency of the actual life force and the energy available to the native just right off the hop. Just whatever they're doing at the moment, like their general disposition, angularity plays a big role in that. And so the Lord of the Ascendant is going to give the native a certain disposition. So the sun is like an illuminator or a shining beacon of light. The native will embody this archetype to a degree, regardless of what sign that the planet is actually in. Like, for instance, the sun is seen as some kind of illuminator, a shining beacon of light to people. The moon is more motherly or nurturing towards people. Mercury is a very kind of smart, witty messenger, a learner, somebody who's quick with her words. And Venus is someone who has kind of a natural knack or an instinct for beauty and a desire to basically harmonize people, make everything, mushy-gushy, I guess. And Mars is someone who has this drive and this courage to pursue his own desires and defeat his enemies and to sort of conquer and achieve victory. And of course, Jupiter is your wise priest whose faith and vision precedes them. Saturn, of course, is like the elder, the administrator, somebody who's doing the hard work, somebody who's very serious, not very loud, but pragmatic, very real. The sign that the Lord of the Ascendant is in the condition of its ruler or its dispositor, very much affects its ability to act. So if the Lord of the Ascendant is not in its own rulership, it's not its own dispositor, and therefore it's at the mercy of its Lord. And so if the Lord is in good shape, well then, especially if the planet's in a sign that's not necessarily good or bad, it can kind of go either way, like Mars in Virgo, for instance. If Mercury's in good shape, well then Mars is going to be in good shape. Especially if those two planets are making an aspect, even if it's just a bi-sign aspect, maybe they're squaring, that is way better than not having any aspect at all. And, of course, a planet in detriment or fall, not aspecting its Lord, is very, very bad, because not only is it going to be uncomfortable, it's going to not ever get the resources it needs to operate properly. It's kind of like you going to a foreign country and then having nowhere to live because the hotel you're supposed to stay at burned down or something, and then the landlord just ran off. I don't know, that's a pretty terrible example, but planet in exaltation, like I said, it can actually raise up the native to make them novel, and even if they're not famous in the normal sense of the word, they can just appear novel in some way. Because the Lord of the Ascendant gives them that sort of that vibe. It's interesting. I didn't really think that was the case, but I've seen examples that prove that. And that's provided that its Lord, its domicile Lord, is actually in good shape and is witnessing it. That really helps. If not, then it's sort of, isn't as good. Now, ideally, the Lord of the Ascendant should at least aspect the Ascendant by major aspect or Ptolemaic aspect, meaning conjunction, sextile, trine, square, opposition. And if it's in any of these houses listed, basically houses that make those aspects to the Ascendant by whole sign, that's good. That means that even if it's not a degree-based aspect, that's still a whole lot better than no aspect whatsoever. So if they're in the houses that are in aversion to the Ascendant, it's harder for the native to really, pursue their life's purpose, because their actions don't necessarily correspond with putting them in the right direction. And so it can sort of either really, really help them if the planet's aspecting, and if it's not aspecting, and if it's in aversion, it can be very big trouble to feel like they're doing anything right. Now, of course, this planet is not everything in the chart. That's why there's a bunch of other mitigating factors like the Lord of Fortune and the Triplicity Lords. The Lord of Ascendant is in best shape when it's direct in motion, visible, meaning not under the beams, and not achronical, meaning it's not... Because when a planet's achronical, you can't actually see it when the sun goes down. It has to be like already set for the other planet to come up on the horizon, so it's not actually visible technically at day or night. It's visible afterwards. That's like apparently not a good thing. I'm not sure if that's any worse than if it's conjoined the sun. I believe it's not, but anyway, it's better if it's of the sect of the chart. So if it's a day chart, it's better if the Lord of the Ascendant is a day planet. But even if it's not a day planet, then it should be a morning star if possible, like on the, before the sun. So when the sun sets, it rises before the sun in the morning. And if it's a night chart, the opposite. So you want the star to be visible when the sun sets. And receiving positive testimony, that's basically by sign aspects. So it doesn't necessarily have to be degree-based aspects, but if by sign it's aspecting planets well, that's positive testimony. Negative testimony is hard aspects from malefics. Of course, it's better if it's not maltreated or enclosed by malefics, as that will severely hamper its ability to function. I don't think I should get into that here, what maltreatment or enclosure is, but those are not good things in this case. So I'm going to go through some examples now. This is of the Lord of the Ascendant for Robert Downey Jr. I'm just going to use some celebrities that probably most people know. And if you look here, he's got a Leo Ascendant and the Sun in the 9th house, 14 degrees. The Ascendant's around the same, actually. And as you can see, it's making a nice trine to the Ascendant. This is really good. And on top of that, the Sun is exalted, aspecting his domicile. So this is like probably one of the best case scenarios. There's a direct conduit of communication between his Lord of the Ascendant and the Ascendant itself. And he's well-disposed, or he's decently well-disposed. His domicile Lord, Mars, is actually in aversion to him, so I guess that's not really best-case scenario, because that, Mars is, of course, unable to give him some of the resources he needs, even though he is raised up. And, of course, he's very famous. Of course, if we're looking at famous people, we're going to see characteristics of their chart that will show them that they are, in fact, famous. So here's Katy Perry's chart. As you can see, her Lord of the Ascendant is Mars in Capricorn, and her chart's just basically one big stellium, I guess. Luckily, Mars is far enough away from the Ascendant to where it actually lands a sextile, almost a degree-based sextile, but nonetheless it's 2 signs away, and that's very good. We want to see that. And it's helping out the Sun, the ruler of the midheaven, and the Sun in Scorpio there, helping her achieve the status that she achieved. And of course, if you look once again, the ruler of the Ascendant is exalted in Capricorn. So again, we got the fame thing going. My mind was blown when I saw this pattern. Exalted planets that are either in the Ascendant or prominent somehow really do portend fame. Not every time, but most of the time. And it could just be like famous on TikTok or whatever, but sometimes it goes bigger than that.